Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, I need to scoot over. Okay, hello everyone. You know, I'm still trying to get my bearings here with the new software and programs, and there's something I want to try. So I do have my secondary camera hooked up, and I was watching some tutorials on changes to this program, and it says you can drag your second camera right onto the screen. So let's try it. I'm just dragging. Yep, look! I got my second camera. So like we could have doggy cam or something. Like I could bring Xena up here and lay her down here and we could have doggy cam. But I just wanted to see if that would work, and it did. That's pretty fun. I wonder if it'll let me do the camera switcher. I'm looking for the camera switcher, which will, you know, flip from one to the other. I think... Well, can't figure that out, but I think it's pretty cool that I could just drag it up onto the screen. Okay, well, you know, maybe one day we'll have the dual camera view, but for today we won't. I was able to feature my Lady Liberty, with this antique Lady Liberty with her torch. It is kind of, though, putting a little bright blob, but that's okay. Alrighty, let's do the YouTube stuff, and then we're going to get right into the discussion. First thing, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. It certainly helps the algorithm. And also go on over to Rumble and subscribe there. I was trying to stream this as well on Rumble because I was trying to learn about that, but Rumble's kind of strange. You have to upload like a looping I don't know if I'll explain this right, but you have to upload like a looping introductory video and then like say the time you anticipate going live. And I like decide like 10 minutes beforehand. So this will require a lot of advanced planning. Then it gives you the RTMP key. So you don't have a static RTMP key that you could just put into your streaming software. This is why until Rumble like gets with the program, that's why it's not that popular. With streamers, it's a pain in the booty. Like you can't just stream. I could stream to Facebook. Like Facebook is horrible. I could stream directly to Twitter, but I can't stream directly to Rumble. Like I have to go through this weird setup thing. Even LinkedIn, you can stream directly to. So to me, that's just crazy pants. But I will try to get that set up. But go subscribe over there. I am sure they will be getting their act together as YouTube becomes more tyrannical, shall we say. Also, please follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I'm going to take MeWe off of there because forget it. It's tumbleweeds. But Facebook and Twitter. But Twitter is where I can be my authentic self, where I identify as a shit poster. And lastly, but not leastly, definitely, but not leastly, good little capitalist that I am, I really would appreciate your support on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. We're probably going to do 3 streams tonight because I need to catch up and I want to do a little teaser like for my Patreon. I could let you know what it's going to be. I think I'm going to put live my review or discussion is more like it. I do book discussions. It's patron only content. We're starting now what Michael Malice's The Anarchist Handbook. We just finished with The Problem of Political Authority by Michael Huemer. But I think I'm going to do the preface on the channel for everybody, kind of as a teaser for my Patreon. So you do get some Patreon only comment. And I see, Treat with Cream says, Rumble just doesn't make it easy. One thing I like about Rumble is it does auto sync to YouTube. But until they make it really easy to stream, they just need to, there's a lot of things that just aren't easy there. It's better though than BitChute. BitChute was horrible. I even just completely gave up on there. But please go and subscribe over at Rumble because when I get thrown off of YouTube, I would like to at least have a couple of viewers over at Rumble. Okay, this is kind of part 2. It's not really a series, but it kind of is a series. They're independently standing, but kind of building up off each other where, and I gotta make sure I don't have lipstick on my teeth. You know how paranoid I am. Nope. You all would tell me, I'm sure, but you know how paranoid I still get. I am eventually working up to the Classical Liberal Caucus report card. And thank you so much for the super chat. And look at the way it describes Samuel, on the screen. It says, video game controller poses triumphantly in between the words, critical hit. I don't know why Ecamm does that, but it describes to me like I am a little bit sight impaired, but not that badly that I couldn't see emojis, but I really do appreciate it. So I am leading up to reviewing the Classical Liberal Caucus report card, but there is a lot of groundwork to get there because some of my criticisms are incomprehensible until you understand fully why I say, while classical liberals are certainly absolutely welcome in the Libertarian Party, and we agree on so much, they're not the same thing. They are not the same thing. Just like strict constitutionalism can fit in very well with the LP. I know so many strict constitutionalists in the LP, but they're not the same thing. The Statement of Principles is not a constitutionalist document or statement, because it's not really, well, I guess it is. It's a page. That's a document. Neither is it a classical liberal document. As I've said before, at most, it's a minarchist document. It straddles between anarchy and menarchy. And you have to get that into your head to understand my critique that I'll do. Because a lot of the critique of the classical liberal caucus had not their more mechanical stuff about finances, things like that. Their more ideological critique was basically, okay, this is going to come off snotty. It's just me. You know, I'm very sarcastic. It was, wah, you're not classical liberals. Well, no shit, Sherlock. It's a libertarian party. Doesn't mean you don't fit. It just means don't try to remake the party into your own image. That there is going to be areas where there's going to be disagreement. And in fact, there are areas of disagreement between the pure party ideology and nearly every libertarian. Because again, as I said, I'm repeating some things I said in my prior video, the party ideology is extremely aspirational and exacting, like rigidly exacting. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that actually in a flattering way. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to mangle this name, even though like my heritage is from Lithuania and that area of the country, Russia and Lithuania. I'm going to mangle this. Chekhov? I would say it's Chekhov. So we're going to talk about the state and Chekhov's gun, because I think that is exactly the reason why the state that we have today is inevitable, or at least some similitude of it. Some of the particulars would, of course, be different if you ran the simulation again. But you remember, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but we'll just use it as an example. You know, when the lady asked Benjamin Franklin, you know, what kind of government did you give us? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. You can't. You can't. Like I said in my last video, I do not believe this country was founded as a libertarian country. I think that's a real dumb claim that people make. But we were founded as a classical liberal country. And it was that classically liberal foundation that led exactly to where we are now, just like Spooner said it would. And there was somebody who had a comment that I want to scroll up and read, because right there, H. Reardon said, hola, ironically, tonight I've been listening to, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that name, Aaron McIntyre and Carl Benjamin discuss the topic, does liberalism dissolve society? I'll have to go listen to that. I enjoy listening to Carl Benjamin, formerly Sargon of Akkad. I know the Rees are coming. I like listening to people I disagree with. That's just the way it is. So, what is Chekhov's gun? And I actually found a very interesting essay that I've never heard of this website before, so if they're terrible on other things, I don't know. I don't know whether they are anarchists on this site, but they seem to be inadvertently arguing for at least a form of anarchy. But I will be putting this article on the screen, but it's from the World Peace Foundation. And it's an article entitled Chekhov's Gun, Mass Atrocities and the Pistol on the Wall. So I just want to read the definition they give of Chekhov's gun, which is, in the late 1800s, Russian playwright Anton Chekhov famously introduced a principle that would later come to be known as Chekhov's gun. And here is the principle. If in the first act you have hung a pistol on the wall, then in the following one it should be fired. Otherwise, don't put it there. So, you know, that's come to be like axiomatic, you know, of like the gun on the table. Somebody is going to pick it up, or it shouldn't be there at all. The minute you introduce, no matter how small, a monopoly on rights enforcement, a territorial monopoly on violence, that is you, and I'm going to use this microphone for the pew-pew, that is you putting the gun on the table. Now, everyone who wants something their eyes aren't on each other. They're not on trying to work things out voluntarily. Everyone's eye is on the gun. And it's almost like the prisoner's dilemma as well, which is a whole other interesting parable. But parable is not even the right word, but thought experiment. But everyone is thinking to each other, someone is going to pick up that gun. I'm either going to pick up the gun and have the power, or someone else is going to pick up the gun and have the power over me. That is why the minute you introduce government, unless you introduce a complete dictatorship, it's going to be impossible to keep it small or keep it within certain principles unless you have a monarch or a dictator. That is why it seems almost paradoxically that I've heard libertarians, and I understand why. I don't advocate for this, but if we were just doing thought experiments, what is better, a good king or your typical democracy? And a lot of libertarians will say, if you have a just king, that will be a much more peaceful and just society than a democracy. But the problem is, shitty kings are a hell of a lot more common. But the argument a lot of libertarians I've heard make will say a very good king is better than a great democracy. So, unless you have like really, really centralized, rigid control that's concentrated and static over time, like the life of a king, life of a dictator, things are going to progress towards more people picking up the gun and seizing more power for themselves. Ironically, classical liberalism has within itself the seeds of its own destruction because it is very tolerant, which is a great thing. But it doesn't take long before groups that were tolerated, and it's different groups each time. I know people are going to try to import in issues of today. You don't need to. It doesn't matter what time you're talking about. There are always out groups and in groups. And whether you think it's right or not, that's just human nature. Sorry, but Jordan Peterson was right when he said, look to the lobsters. There is going to be hierarchy. Hierarchy is natural. And once an outgroup figures out it can pick up that gun, then it doesn't take much for toleration to be turned into forced acceptance, and forced acceptance turned into celebration. And then the formerly out group then becomes the in group, and the roles are turned, and the cycle keeps on continuing until the society destroys itself. Because once you put the option on the table of using coercive force, someone is going to use it to their advantage. It is inevitable. It's almost like when you hear people say, if you hear this in Christian circles a lot, as when you get married, don't even say the word divorce. Now listen, I've been divorced, so I'm not one of those people, I'm just saying sometimes some words of wisdom that is said. If you're trying to work it out in your marriage, don't bring up the D word, because you've just now put the gun on the table. And it puts the nuclear option. And when we're talking about, wars between states, we're quite literally talking about the nuclear option, but it puts the nuclear option on the table. So the very things that are good about liberalism are what will inevitably destroy it and lead it into a power struggle hellscape. Now, how is libertarianism different? Now, that same criticism could be said of monarchy. This is why I'm an anarchist. But right now, because I'm leading up to a criticism of a particular, of a report that comes from a particular point of view, that's why I'm keeping it to classical liberalism. I think the same thing's pretty inevitable of monarchy. It'll just be on a longer time frame because it is much more constrained. But this is one of the reasons why I'm an anarchist. You can't have the gun on the table at all. At least not the state one. And some people say, well, you're just exchanging the government boot for like a private boot. But if a private boot oppresses you, it can't claim to be just because by definition it is just like the government does. Well, you got to follow the law. Why? Because it's the law. But who said it's the law? The law said it's the law. It's that circle. People are bad, therefore we need government. Made up of people who are bad, therefore we need government. And the circle goes on and on. But I actually want to show you this essay because I think it also proves my point just in general. And this is talking about facilitating world peace. But I do need to take comments off the screen, I think. And we are going to pull up this article. So as you can see, it's, you can see all my tabs too. No, there isn't any, you're not going to see any prawn. There's no prawn. It's all libertarian crap. But anyway, so I'm going to read this aloud because I think it is so good. So it is by someone named Bridget Conley. Again, no idea of this author or the site. I just like this article. So we had already read the first sentence, first two sentences actually, that describe what Chekhov's gun is. So she goes on to say, Chekhov thereby succinctly illustrated the principle of foreshadowing. Inclusion of a pistol on stage orients the audience's expectations throughout the performance. It's not a matter of firing or not firing the weapon. Its very presence organizes a framework for understanding how events are perceived and what actions might therefore follow. His principle goes further, instructing his fellow playwrights on the art of focusing only on what is necessary and irreplaceable. While the artistry of rhetoric is undeniably reduced in the texts of international institutional discourse and the realm of policy on atrocity prevention and response, Chekhov's gun applies. Maintaining the pistol on the wall has oriented the imagination of atrocity prevention and response in four key ways. First, work on atrocities is locked into a mindset of the permanent emergency. Second, lessons at odds with military action from even the canonical cases are forgotten. The dominant framework assumes that these cases required military action and therefore subsequent policies needed to legitimize it. Third, triage, attempting to identify the greatest risks and tailoring policies, tactics, a toolbox to engage them is the best model for prevention. And fourth, consensus on principles supporting civilian protection is worth risking in order to enable coercive action, rare as it might be. Finally, the pistol on the wall has also meant that the work of atrocities prevention and response has prioritized approaches that render it palatable to governments and multilateral organizations. And then she goes on to talk about Iraq. This is not to argue that policy recommendations should not be made or heeded, but rather that advocates should be wary of beginning with what is palatable and then shaping recommendations in light of this understanding. So this essay begins a short series exploring the 5 traits relating to the policies and approaches for mass atrocities response and prevention as discussed above that emerge as a result of the pistol on the wall. This sets aside for the moment how the militarized approach to atrocities prevention and response impacts decision-making of actors within the country where atrocities occur. While coercive military intervention is not by any stretch the preferred or commonly deployed tool for responding to mass atrocities, including it in the atrocity response toolbox has produced a limited yet hegemonic way of imagining prevention. It invisibly polices, the borders of what is considered relevant. It is time not only to be critical or hesitant about it, but to reject it outright. This last sentence is key. What other insights, cases, and practices might become apparent if we took the pistol off the wall? So, that is what I advocate for as far, as a libertarian anarchist, is to take the pistol off the wall. And human ingenuity will find other ways to resolve all these things that we think have to be resolved by state coercion. But any framework that starts with state coercion as an option, the state coercion will eventually be used. By the second act, that pistol will be fired. And again, this same criticism I do think applies to strict monarchy as well. I just think it is a longer time frame. Classical liberalism allows quite a bit more government. And also, as described in my last show, the focus is not on the individual in classical liberalism. It is on society, which makes the slip way easier. Like if we had a strict monarchy rather than a background of classical liberalism, the New Deal, I don't think, could have ever happened. But it easily happened under the framework of classical liberalism. So that now just lays the background. But the minute you're already using the coercive power of the state for some things, it is going to be used for other things. And let me tell you who the worst oppressors are: the formerly oppressed. The formerly oppressed become the worst oppressors. We are seeing this today. Now I am going to relate it to current events. Forcing Christians to bake the fucking cake. Yes, gay people were terribly oppressed in this country. And some gay people have become the worst of oppressors because it is human nature. When you've been under the boot, if you could get out from under the boot, you want to chop that foot off. But then guess what happens? The person you chop the foot off will eventually get out from under your boot and then crush you even more. It is a never-ending cycle. So this is a short show, but I hope that illustration of Chekhov's gun gets you thinking a little bit about government and the way it shapes what we view as possible solutions. I would highly also recommend looking into Nozick, where he talks about side constraints. And, amongst the more philosophical, we call them Nozickian side constraints, where, I basically visualize it like a bowling alley where you have the bumpers. I still bowl with bumpers, by the way, because I'm I'm gutter ball girl. But you got the bumpers that constrain your action. The gun's not on the wall. And within the two bumpers, you've got a wide range of opportunities, and you should choose the one that maximizes good. But certain options are just unthinkable. They're not an option. And government force is one of them. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We are going to come back. Again, I'm doing 3 live streams tonight. So probably going to come back and do the little teaser where we're going to talk about the Michael Malice book. So you'll see another countdown. I'm just going to go get some wine, and then probably some history. But I might be a bit too tired after that because I was doing some messing around in here. But I hope you have an awesome night. I know I need to update my closing donor screen There's been some changes. I just haven't had a chance to yet. But I hope you've had an awesome night and it continues on. And maybe I'll see you in my next stream. Bye-bye. Oh, did it not end the stream? Oh my goodness. I'm glad I wasn't doing something embarrassing. Oh, I deleted the closing thing. Okay, bye.